We did some good calls, but I feel like I've just kept people on the line for too long. Calling from a 720 area code. Is this where you're calling from?
Is this me?
This is you.
Oh my goodness, I've been trying to call for so long. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
This is Jackson. I am in Nebraska and
Wait, say it again, I'm sorry.
This is Jackson from Nebraska.
Jackson from Nebraska, what's on your mind?
So I grew up in Colorado, and I'm 24 years old. And I don't know about you guys, but when I was in high school, we had lessons about learning about biases in the media and being able to point out like fake news and like the truth and everything like that. So now that I'm living in Nebraska, I'm in a small town, and what's most disturbing to me is just the fact that facts just don't matter anymore. And honestly, it's pretty heartbreaking. Like on the debate stage when Donald Trump said that the migrants are eating dogs and cats, like people around here started repeating that. And when I start to ask them about like the facts behind it, like they can't provide them. And so that's what's most disturbing to me about the political stage right now in America is the MAGA movement honestly resembles
a cult?
The Nazi party like way too much. And honestly, I just kind of like, I think Sam could honestly provide some good input on this also, but you guys can too, obviously.
No,
but like when...
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were done, but go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that, like, if we can't talk about facts anymore, then, like in the debates this year, there was no talk about policy anymore, like there was in 2008. And so if there's no talk about facts, then what are we even, like, talking about anymore? You know what I mean?
Well, I do think that Donald Trump has done immense damage to a lot of people's ability to to differentiate between what's true and what's false. I would also argue that our social media platforms are really underregulated, which I think creates a corroded and siloed media environment that exacerbates what you describe. Now, hopefully we can regulate big tech at some point in the future, but as of right now, I agree with you that that's in a dark place. However, I do think that it's a little bit secondary, right? Because if there had been a counter narrative, this would have been stymied to a degree, right? Where politics has always been to a degree about lying. And I think you're absolutely right that the idea that we haven't gotten to a place now in this year 2024 that's different from 2008 of like misinformation and conspiracism, you would be incorrect to say that we're in the exact same place. Like it has devolved and unwinded. But I think the problem is that in politics, especially when information is moving so fast at this current moment, and will for the rest of our lives, given the internet, you have to have a theme of what you're offering people. It can't just be fact checks and Pinocchios, right? That is kind of just hall monitor stuff. The Democrats failed because they didn't say anything that was true, that felt true as well as a overarching theme for the party. So perhaps the people in Nebraska that you're hanging out with who you're saying take Trump's word hook, line, and sinker, they may have been that way with Bush, right? If this was 2006 or 2004. But for everybody else, where that seeps out to, that's on the Democrats still to change their narrative to meet this current moment, if that makes sense to you, Jackson.
Look, my take is the media is definitely worse now than it was in 2008. It was worse in 2008 than it was in 2000. It was worse in 2000 than it was in 1990. There is a long-term trend of disinvestment in reporting by America's capitalists. So the employment in these industries, particularly in local papers, has been just collapsing, and this is a trend that's been going on for a long time. Conversely, the rise in paid liars, which is, of course, I applied for these jobs, public relations, PR, advertising, that sort of stuff, has gone through the roof. So people are just coming into terms with a lot of messages that are meant to sell them on stuff rather than inform them. I think overall, though, there is an advantage to being the party that generally coheres to the truth, because the truth doesn't really change a whole lot. If all of a sudden we're talking about Michelle Obama wants to force you to eat organic foods, but now all of a sudden it's RFK in there saying, hey, we're going to make you eat organic foods and that you like it. I think that can be kind of useful at some point, but I think over the long term, it's not where I'd want to be as a political party. The problem with the Democrats is they spent the last year lying about a lot of things, like Joe Biden wants peace in the Middle East and isn't supporting a genocide, or Kamala Harris is fighting for a ceasefire. So you kind of abandon that terrain a little bit, and
Biden's age, I think, also in terms of what travels, even
a massive lie. Lie. And you don't need to know anything about politics to understand that a party was hiding and telling you not to believe your lying eyes about something.
The most low propensity voters that I know basically said they're both anecdotal, obviously, but said they're both liars. I know he's a crook, but God, they've been lying about Biden's age the whole time.
What else are they lying about?
Yep.
And the other
thing I would like.
The one final thing I just want to say before you make your last point is, again, I'd point back to Lainey Newman's book with Theda Skulchpal, Rust Belt Union Blues, which goes into the thing where, we let Democrats like the DLC under Bill Clinton in the 80s said we need to not pay so much attention to labor. And that helps a trend towards labor, just especially in the private sector, not being a thing anymore. And then we wonder why people are getting the wrong messages, because there's not any sort of organized labor to countervail that message. It actually turns out that there's other things that unions do besides just pay their members. It's also have them lead to a more informed populace. So we disorganize people, and then now people are adrift.
Well, and you're not wrong, but I would like to add that, I bartend in this small town of 3,000, and these farmers will get off the fields and go to the bar and just watch Fox News, And a couple of years ago, when Fox News lost that lawsuit for, I think it was 1.3 billion, these people don't even know that they lost that lawsuit. And I was so excited at that time that maybe they would finally be held accountable for it. And it just never happened. So I guess, my last question to you all is, do you guys see any change in the near future? But thank you for taking my call, and left is always best. Thank you.
Left is best. I think I think you're right about the severity of the problem, and I don't want to discount that either. It's not just the Democrats. This apparatus and this conspiracism has been fostered on the right since before my lifetime, or before I was born. But I do think that Donald Trump, and I think, social media and the paid liars on that, whether you're taking money from Tenet or whatever, or the subsidized guys at the Daily Wire, and they have the money for paid advertisements all over Facebook. I'm not on Facebook anymore, but I have occasionally checked it. And you know what? It's a cesspool. And if you're a boomer, or if you're Gen X and you don't have a ton of media literacy, and frankly, the Gen X people, those are the folks that voted most for Trump. Seniors swung towards Kamala Harris, and young men swung towards Trump. But young people still are voting more Democrat, and millennials are the most Democratic generation of them all. But the folks that grew up with Donald Trump on as The Apprentice, who are on Facebook, and then who also watch cable news a lot for their news, they're also the people that are most buying into this Trump bullshit. And I think that they're more susceptible to false information.
I don't know that I see it getting better, although I do not lament the collapse of MSNBC, and I look to hopefully the future collapse of Fox News. There's difficulties going on within the Murdoch clan right now in terms of secession.
Yes. Can Lachlan do what Rupert has always done?
And it would be nice if the sort of online media was able to ultimately destroy that thing, because I think the era that we're leaving wasn't necessarily great either, where we had this sort of like centrist media establishment first by major papers and also like a few channels before there was cable news, where everyone vaguely trusted the mainstream press. Like, that's an aberration. Before the Civil War happened, the number one selling book before Uncle Tom's Cabin was a book called The Quaker City, the Monks of Monk Hall by a guy named George Lippard. And the entire plot of that book, you can look it up on Wikipedia, is how all the politicians are doing horrible things after dark behind closed doors and are entirely corrupt. I think that is a more realistic view of America than the one that we've had, where these are just different groups of people fighting for the best ideas. No, this is a corrupt nation that needs to be redeemed from below.
Did I say Gen X the whole time when I meant Gen Z? I'm getting IMs about this.
You said Gen X.
Which one is older than millennial?
Gen X. Gen Z is below.
I know. I literally can't figure. For some reason, it's like a mental block.
But you meant Gen X, right?
I meant, yes. I meant like after the boomers, in between millennials.
I mean, those are the people that voted for Bill Clinton and thought it was really great.
Right. And by the way, to your point about, like, there is actual progress in the media. Like, the CNN and the rise of the 24-hour news cycle manufactured consent for our wars in the Middle East by treating it like a big Rambo movie, showing every night the bombs going off in Iraq the first time in the 90s and in Kuwait or whatever, and making it so that, like, Whitney Houston goes out and sings the national anthem at the Super Bowl and everyone's crying as we bomb Muslims abroad. That wouldn't happen today. So there is a benefit.
And the American people still vote they hate Democrats, and they still vote in referenda for progressive things. And we can act as if that is just a product of Joe Rogan and misinformation. Or we can try to be seen ostentatiously addressing the real reasons people do have for not trusting Democrats.
No, I think we do that, right?
Of course.
I also think, that in terms of, what Kyle was talking about earlier, this audience that feels like they were maybe lied to by the media, right? We're telling you that that's the case, and that there's alternative sources like ours, hopefully, but others, where liberalism is dying, leftism is the way to go, and we know this now. And you should, and we knew this before, but if you were dismissive of it, or you thought that, I don't know, that Bernie Sanders couldn't have won or anything like that, we're telling you now that this is the way to actually combat Donald Trump, who you rightly hate, right? And who is going to be extremely destructive and violent and cause a lot of pain. And the way to prevent that is to provide for people so they don't resort to voting for a guy like him. We kind of went down a rabbit hole there, but it was a good conversation, I think. And thanks for the call, by the way.